Hey folks, back again with ancient cosmography. Got so I found this image of Gaia, and it looks like it's basically one of these avatars of the shape of Afro-Eurasia, um, and it could be that what's going on down here could relate to like Australia and like these Southeast Asian islands and whatnot. Certainly these two arms could relate to the Malay Peninsula and Sumatra, maybe Java. So yeah, basically seems that like I think this is how they show, like in Egypt too, this is how they show earth, soil, whatever, land is this kind of texture with just like dots on it. I'm pretty sure, unless this is supposed to represent something celestial as well. But I think that in Egypt and in Greece, this is just the way they depict land, like earth. So, obviously this would be, I think the head is not actually part of it. Her body is the actual land, and her head is just separate. Because it doesn't have that same texture on it. It doesn't have these dots or anything like that. So, I think that basically, so this is like West Africa. I'm not sure where West Africa ends and where I don't know what's exactly Western Europe, where Western Europe begins. I'm guessing at least by here is Western Europe, if not earlier. And there's a chance that I think there's a solid chance that these two like things hanging there, or this thing hanging off of her headband, represents Ireland and Britain, a smaller island and a bigger island, even though they're not round. But in a lot of Greek maps, islands are just shown as round balls, regardless what shape they are. Like in the Ptolemaic maps and whatnot, if they're small enough islands, which here for the overall scale they are. So yeah, and then I'm guessing these might be the some of the northern Russian peninsulas, although there's a chance that one of them is Denmark, and if it turns out this isn't Britain and Ireland, then there's a chance one of these represents Britain and Ireland. Yeah. So, this would be West Africa here, and this would be Southern Africa. And so we see that even the shape of this kind of seems to match, where it's like to here, and then it's like slightly different angle. It's like here, and then a slightly different angle. But certainly this part matches in the sense that there's distinctly two, bumps, you could say, on the western side of Southern Africa. And here, we have distinctly two bumps, 1, 2, and then a more straight part at the end, which is this part here. And so I'm not sure what all else it shows. Could be right here showing the Horn of Africa. I'm not sure. And like it could be that this foot right here represents like, you know, around like Oman or wherever that is, like in Arabia, where it's like poking against Iran kind of. And then maybe this little dip right, there's a bump right here, that could be India. And like this foot, there's a chance the foot represents Kamchatka Peninsula here, even though it's not, it's partly cut off, but it's kind of like that in some way. And so yeah, I'm pretty sure about this, because what the hell else would it be, you know? Certainly that's not an actual shape of a person. Like if you think people are shaped like that, I don't know, man. So it could be that all these little lines inside represent things, but if so, I'm not exactly sure what they represent, if they represent mountains or rivers or what. You know, this one maybe corresponds partly to this river. I mean, if they're waterways, then one of these has got to be the Mediterranean up here. Anyway, such as the such. Pretty stoked to have found that. Found a European, ancient European map. Alright, so I've been studying, I watched The Little Mermaid, you know, I know that the culture warriors are all in a huff about it, but, you know, it was like decent, it was good, like non-sexualized kids movie, which I think is good, it was pretty wholesome. But then I started studying the mermaid, you know, because I knew that the sirens are associated with something around Corsica. So I looked into that, and apparently the origin of the sirens myth is not Corsica itself, but the islands between Corsica and mainland Italy. So this is the biggest one, the biggest of those the islands between them. So this, you know, there's a very solid chance this is the origin of the kind of mermaid archetype. And so the islands there, they're called the Sirenos, or the sirens, basically. And then there's also a nearby island called Capri, which could mean goat islands in Latin. And that would make sense based on either this part of it or which is actually right here, zoomed in here, or it could be oh yeah, here's another one of the Siren Islands with kind of like a mermaid tail. This one's actually called Dolphin Island because the head looks like a dolphin, or this part looks like a dolphin's head, but it still could be part of the same archetype that helped inspire the mermaid thing. But there's a chance that this goat island, that the goat head is actually this whole part. And there's also a chance that he's actually Wild Boar Island, since the same, you know, Capra means wild boar in Greek, and the Greeks were supposed to be the first ones on this island. And if it turns out that these two things were originally natural promontories, that could represent boar's teeth, you know, tusks or whatever. So hard to be sure about that. And my phone's about to cut me off, I think. This is like I think a Chinese map of the underworld, or maybe Japanese. No, I think it's Chinese. So I think that these cloud maps were actually land maps sometimes. So this might be a map of America, but I'm not sure exactly from which angle. Like maybe this is South America, this is North America, but it's flipped antipodally like the Egyptian ones. Who knows? So yeah, there's a chance that the things sticking out of Gaia's back are these peninsulas in Russia. You know, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And this kind of shows Africa at a similar angle and whatnot. This compares Capricornus, you know, the actual Capricornus, and then the possibility that Capricorn